The thing is, all these things we've talked about on this list, if we could be good at them, not perfect, but if we could be good at all those things, you would be such a valuable person to everybody around you.
Just Hello everyone, welcome back to the Fascinating Womanhood channel, where we talk about all things that have to do with femininity and building strong relationships. I am Sherry Lynn, and I am here with Dixie Andelin Forsyth. Hi.
Hi.
So we're talking about character today. We hear about character all the time. I'm sure everyone watching this, when you think about good character in a person, you have a ton of things that pop into mind and it feels really natural. One of the things that I don't think a lot of people talk about is how it applies to men and women. So for example, courage. That's a very attractive character trait, right? Well, how is a woman courageous and how is a man courageous? We want to talk about our list of really wonderful character traits. But as a woman, because, we really talk to women on our channel, how can you work on those character traits as a female? So that's what we want to talk about today.
Okay. So we come up with 10. There's, as usual, more. These are real common ones. The main thing to remember with all of these traits is that for women, we tend to, and 10 doesn't mean 100%, the majority of the time, we tend to approach character things in terms of relationships. Courage, for example. Courage for a man, and some of there's overlap. Women can be the type of courageous men are in some things, and they do. But where we really excel at that kind of courage is like to have a baby is scary. Any of us who've had a baby, I know when you're 8 months pregnant and you see this big belly and you think all this has to come out. It's scary. And so to be, and then once you've been through it, to actually have another one. A lot of men wouldn't do that kind of courage. Doing something that is hard for you because you're protecting somebody else.
Right.
Whereas I was talking to Bob about it, and he said a lot of men like doing courageous things like jumping out of airplanes and bungee jumping because of the high that it gives them. I don't tend to do that kind of courage. It isn't a high for me. It's just scary.
Yeah, men almost, and again, there's exceptions. This isn't every man, but I think generally men love that feeling of saving and rescuing someone, whereas women like that feeling of protecting, like they're like, you've heard the mother bear thing.
Right. So the first one we have on our list is self-improvement. We often approach that as something that we do for ourselves, but also how people will react to us. It isn't just our own little bubble and we do self-improvement for me and I don't care who notices or anything. It's usually relationships are tied to it, if that makes sense, because we're very relationship oriented. The next one is courage, which we just talked about. And one of my favorite ones is humility. This tends to be one of our core strengths if we tap into it. Men can be humble too, but it's a little harder for them as a rule. And by humility, I don't mean low self-esteem. To be truly humble takes good self-esteem. Because what it means to be humble in this sense is to recognize a rough idea of where you are in terms of what you know versus what other people know, what there is to know. And so you don't ever get too full of yourself because you realize compared to some people, you don't know hardly anything. Nobody really knows much of anything the whole time they're alive, because if you look at this earth and what there is to know on it, I mean, how much do I know about the bottom of the ocean? Almost nothing. And then there's history, there's archaeology, there's science, space stuff, there's immunology, there's cars, the things just in our house. How do I know? Do I know how to make an oven? No. What we accumulated in terms of knowledge here is really very little, and recognition of that. I don't know everything. Humility to me means you're teachable, and that's a great quality to have.
And that ties in a lot with self-improvement. I feel like they can both go very hand in hand with one another.
And I've wondered sometimes why women tend to not have as much of a problem with lack of humility. And I thought, well, maybe it's because we scrub toilets. I don't know. We do things that are, to some people, would be humbling. Some people have never done something like washed a floor on their hands and knees, done something that is just, or do something for somebody else that is not cool at all. You just do it to be kind. You do something very difficult. And again, we tend to approach those things from a relationship point of view.
Right.
Instead of, I need to do this. Then there's charity. Men can be very charitable too, but if you look around, most of the charitable organizations are either started by or staffed a lot by women. I think the Red Cross was started by a woman. Of course, charity is obviously relationship oriented. And that's why women do it, because we're worried about the poor. We're worried about the homeless, about people who may starve.
Yeah, I think this can be everyday. There are everyday examples of being charitable, and I think a lot of those apply to women. And of course, men can work on it again in different ways. That's why we wanted to talk about it. We're not talking about how every human being can work on these traits. It's like, how can women work on these traits? Well, charity, I think, is a very natural female positive character that we can work on every day, and it doesn't have to be volunteering and taking a ton of time. It could just be small acts of kindness and service.
It's actually one of the things we talk about in Fascinating Womanhood, the way you treat your man. Fold his laundry first. It's a charitable thing to do. You're thinking of someone else first, and that's what's charitable. And so you could do that with your children, with your parents, with your husband, and it's thinking of others for yourself. And
Exactly.
women tend to excel at that. Number 5 is self-restraint. That's always kind of rough. I think when I first go to dieting,
I struggle with this one a little bit.
I think we all struggle with this because desires.
That's why we work on them, right?
That's why we have to work that. Yeah. And so we have to work on those things, which is absolutely fine. We're just recognizing in women the way we approach self-restraint, again, tends to be relationship tied in to relationships instead of as a task. Number 6 is one of my favorite ones, especially now, is honesty and honor. There's so much dishonesty. Have you noticed it? On the news, in stores. I mean, you just where somebody promises you something that this thing will work, or this is how much something will cost, and then there's all these hidden fees. There's all this dishonesty in the world, and it's something. Honor and honesty is something that is so valuable. If someone can say about you, well, she's honest. How much
I think too, with this one, with women, we tend to be stronger at verbalizing our feelings.
Right.
And so where we can really work on this part with honesty, because, I think a lot of people might hear honesty, honor, and think, oh yeah, I'm honest. I mean, but really, how upfront are you about your feelings and how you approach things with your children, with your husband, really being upfront and swallowing your pride sometimes and saying, well, actually that did upset me, or actually that did hurt my feelings. Those are things that we can do.
And don't be afraid to apologize to your children.
Exactly.
When you say, I'm sorry that I was so grumpy, or whatever it is that you do. Being willing to apologize to even a small child is a form of honesty, and it's a form of humility too. So then humor, it's easier for me. It's a fun one. Humor always gets us upstairs, and women can excel at this. Men can too. Try to find the humor in situations. It's a great skill, and women are good at it again because we tend to be relationship oriented. Think about if somebody's really low and you first listen to them, and then you can try to get them back upstairs, as we talk about in Timeless, and help them to even smile or laugh. It can really help a person. It's a great gift to give other people.
Yeah, and it can be really hard. I struggle with this one. I really struggle with humor because, the stress right now.
Have you ever been in a situation that was really hard to go through, and then years later, you laugh about it?
Oh, yeah.
Wouldn't it be great if we could learn to say, I wonder if I'm going to laugh about this, and try to do it more now, rather than like 5 years from now, and you say, wasn't that horrible? And because at that point, you have gone through it. But everything you go through now, you will go through it. You will not always feel like the earth is crumbling.
I think too, social media is such a a roller coaster place of stress. And that's a great place to practice humor because you have time to kind of think about your response to things. Do you have to respond to a post or something that you don't agree with in a snarky way? Or could you choose a more humorous route?
I have a brother, you know who is so good at this. I try to be better at it because I've watched him and he's so good he's a doctor. He does it with patients all the time. And some of these people have so much stress. They're so scared about what they're going through, how sick they are, or whatever. And he has a way of diffusing the situation with humor. Mm-hmm. So then another one that women can get really good at is optimism. Again, for me, that's relationship oriented. And I think of my grandmother, my mother's mother, who was so good at that. And I struggle with that sometimes because I tend to be a fearful person. Mm-hmm. I have I'm really sensitive and a little high strung. But she would say, like to my dad, when he was scared he was not going to get into dental school, this was during the World War II. She said, it might be the best thing in the world if you didn't, you'd make you a better man. And it relieved him so much to know that she would not think of him as a failure if he didn't get, she said, it might be the best thing in the world. So, and she was able to do that because she recognized the value of the person, mm-hmm. what they were actually needing over what exactly, just specifically what they were saying. Instead of needing to say, I'm sure you'll get in, it didn't really relieve the pressure as much as it'll be okay no matter what. That's optimistic, and I admire that in her, and I wish I was more like her that way. Number 9, we have loyalty. Women also are very good at excelling at loyalty. Sometimes women stay in situations they couldn't for way longer than they should because mm-hmm. of loyalty. It's a wonderful quality in anybody, but it's one of your basic core strengths is loyalty.
Well, and loyalty is connected to trust, and those things can be connected to any relationship. It could be friendships. This isn't just marriages and romantic relationships. This is tied to all of your loving relationships with anyone.
Yeah.
And loyalty is a very attractive and desirable character trait because it applies to so many people in your lives, to your children, to your friends. And women working on loyalty, I think, can even just be tiny little everyday things.
Well, and it ties into number 10, which is integrity. If you tell someone you're coming to dinner, then you don't just either not show up or tell them at the last minute when you know they've already bought and prepared a bunch of food. Mm-hmm. So integrity is doing what you say, or if you can't, being thoughtful enough of them so that you don't just leave them hanging. Or say later, oh, sorry about that, I wasn't able to come. The thing is, all these things we've talked about on this list, if we could be good at them, not perfect, but if we could be good at all those things, you would be such a valuable person to everybody around you. That's just true. Knowing that you're loyal. The one thing, loyalty. And some says, I never doubt their loyalty or their honesty. In other words, if a friend of yours gets accused of something, you think they wouldn't do that. You mm-hmm. stick up for them. They would not do that. I know this person, whether it's your husband or someone else, I know this person, and I just refuse to believe that either their intentions were dishonorable or that if they did it, they had a reason, that you believe that in their integrity.
Yes.
Until you're forced to believe otherwise. People long for that, and you can do that.
I think all 10 of these bullets could be its own video. So if anybody's watching, if you want us to do a video on a specific character trait, definitely drop a comment down below and we will do it, because I think we could go on and on and on about each one, but we just wanted to cover this list of 10 because these are really, really important. And I think, in your book, you talk about building character. It's one of the chapters, and it goes into detail about each one. So if you haven't read Dixie's book, I'll attach a link below and you can click on it and find where you can buy it near you. But it's incredibly powerful. And this chapter is so inspiring. You should definitely read it if you haven't already. But thank you so much for going over all of these points with us. And thank you for watching with us. Don't forget, we're here every week. So hit subscribe if you haven't already to find out when we have new videos coming out. And we will see you next time.
And remember, you don't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
Because I'm not. Neither are you. So.
Bye.
Bye.